And the very next day, he extends the tour of every person on the ground. Once you get over the hypocrisy, Mr. President, that announcement is an urgent warning that the administration's policy in Iraq cannot be sustained without doing terrible long-term damage to our military. If this administration insists on keeping this many troops in Iraq until next year, it will have to send soldiers back a third, fourth, and fifth tours, extend deployment times from 6 months to a year for Marines, from 12 months to 16 or 18 months for the Army. Mr. President, the military will also be forced to end the practice of keeping troops at home for at least 1 year between deployments, to fully not mobilize the National Guard and the Reserve, and to perpetuate this backdoor draft. This president is breaking the military. We don't have to guess the impact on this relentless readiness, its impact on retention and recruitment. This month we learned that recent graduates of West Point are choosing to leave active duty service at the highest rate in more than 3 decades. This administration's policy are literally driving some of our best and brightest young officers out of the military. Mr. President, instead of working with Democrats in Congress on a way forward, this president, divorced from reality, is accusing us of emboldening the enemy and undermining our troops. Well, Mr. President, I have a message for you. The only thing that's emboldening the enemy is your failed policy. Mr. President, the only mission you've accomplished is to embolden the enemy with your failed policy. Mr. President, instead of escalating the war with no end in sight, we have to start bringing this to a responsible conclusion. If the administration insists on keeping this many troops next year, we are in serious jeopardy. Mr. President, let me conclude by saying that I believe it's my obligation as a senator, and I hope the obligation of everyone else, to keep relentless, unending pressure on this president to come to grips with reality, to continually push every single day to say, Mr. President, stop this policy of yours. Mr. President, it's my hope, even though he's likely to veto this bill, that we will keep the pressure on and ultimately convince at least a dozen of our Republican colleagues that it's time to stop backing the president and start backing the troops. It's time, Mr. President, it's time to begin to responsibly bring this war to an end. I yield the floor.